Okay, I think we're live now. I'll just give you back the host.
Okay.
And you make co-host so I could monitor the chat.
There you go.
Okay. It's fine. And you're right on time there. Here they are. I'll admit them all.
Hi there, Leslie. How are you? You're muted.
Hi, Russ.
Hi, Bogey. Oops, Bogey vanished. Easy come, easy go. Hi there, Arlene.
Hi. That was me, Arlene. Said hi.
Hi, Arlene. Yes. We greeted someone named Bogey and they vanished. And we got Pat joining us. Hi, Pat.
My dog's joining us too.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a good idea. Throw that toy for that dog.
She picks what she wants.
I used to have a cat that played fetch.
Really?
Yeah, he did it till he was about maybe 5 years old. Then he stopped playing fetch. I don't know whether he thought he was too old for it. And he only played it in the evenings after about 8:30. He would find me and want to play fetch for about 10 minutes, and then that was it.
They train us, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Sit.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you today?
Good. Come back to find out more.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm keeping trying to decide when I'm going to go see those twins that I haven't seen.
And was it Vienna or somewhere?
Vienna, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been to Vienna. I'd like to get to Vienna.
Yeah, it's a nice city.
What I'd like to do sometimes is just fly in some of these other airlines like Austria Air or Swiss Air, just Swedish Air, just Air France, just to do it once.
Right. I mean, I don't know which one you usually fly on, but Austrian is part of Lufthansa. It's owned by Lufthansa, and so they're part of the One World. No, not One World. The Star Alliance. The United Airlines is the big one in the U.S.
Yep. And that's how I've flown Lufthansa. I like Lufthansa. Mm-hmm. I traditionally have flown overseas on either Delta or United, mostly United. They have a lot of overseas flights because Dulles is my local airport. They have a lot of international flights from there, but I have taken some others. I got to fly to Frankfurt on a 747 via Lufthansa, and that was one of the best flights I've ever had.
Right.
And then when I went to Italy 2 years ago, I flew on Alitalia, but that was a Delta flight, but it was Alitalia. They're in the same network.
Right. They have a code share. Austrian flies nonstop from Dulles to Vienna. I think they fly nonstop from Chicago to Vienna. Also, I've considered doing Houston. I have to go through either London, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, or Paris. Those are really my choices. I have to change. I have direct flights to all of those, but then I have to change over there. Usually I go through London.
Well, I always say it's worth it to get over the pond before you have to change planes, because if you're stuck, I'd rather be stuck there than in Chicago.
Right. Because there are more once you get over there are more connections. If you miss a flight, then you don't have to wait till the next day or whatever. You've got connections. Yeah.
And even if you do have to wait till the next day, there's something to see. I've been stuck in Chicago and Washington I won't even want to talk about it. Anyway, they're not fun places to be stuck in, especially Chicago. No, it's not a bad airport at all. Good afternoon, everybody. Hey, let's do by way of introduction, put in the chat where you're from and where you'd like to travel to. And we'll if you'd like, well, just put where you'd like to travel to, whether you think you're going to travel there this year or maybe next year. And we'll just use that as a bit of an exercise, because the best way to figure out this question of when we can travel where is just to start looking at places we might like to go. And I will show you a bit today about Italy, but we'll also look at Susan, because Susan wants to go to Vienna. We'll look at Vienna. So Leslie has answered first. She would like to travel to Europe. Leslie, could you put in there any place in specific you'd like to go in Europe? I mean, I'd go anywhere, but if you got a specific place. Susan wants to go to Australia and New Zealand. Those are tough to go to right now. That's what I understand.
Yeah, they're closed. I had to postpone a trip that I had scheduled last year to later this year, but then I don't even know if we're going to make it this year. So I might go into 2022. Yeah.
Leslie, you've got a great laundry list here. Spain, Portugal, France, Switzerland, England, Germany. Those are all great places. I could totally get that. Portugal's a place that's open right now to Americans. You went 28 days backpacking. Whoa, that sounds great. Arlene wants to go to Iceland to see the volcano. Well, Iceland's a place that's open right now. Now, let me just correct myself when I say open. Open means they've said they will be open to Americans. They may not be open to Americans today. Several countries have announced they will be open to American travelers on a certain date. And I know some people that are ready to go there as soon as it's possible. Yvonne wants to go to Michigan, Jamaica, the Netherlands, and back to London. That sounds great. And Leslie also wants to go to Vienna and the Netherlands. Susan wants to go to the Oberammergau.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. They had to postpone it from 2020, so it's scheduled for next year.
I knew some people that were planning to go last year. So, okay. And Leslie's got a big bucket list, and Yvonne is from Michigan. Michigan does have nice water. I just read yesterday that there are more lakes in Michigan than anywhere else in the country, and it had the highest boat ownership. I never would have guessed that.
I'd like to figure out how to go someplace in the US first when you have a service dog and you can't rent a van because they don't have them and cars are ridiculous. And where would I go?
Okay. Well, that's a good question. You're thinking of flying.
No.
You want to drive?
Yes. Well,
your own car, or you want to rent a car?
It depends on where I'm going and where I'm going to stay when I get there.
Okay. And let's see. Arlene, where are you? You're from Montrose, Colorado. Okay.
And I've been on cruises and trips. I've seen literally 2/3 of all the countries in the world.
Okay.
Because they had a thing online where you could fill out all the countries you've been to, and it was amazing. So it's like, where do I want to go back to?
Okay. Where do you want to go back to?
Ljubljana and Iceland.
Okay.
I was very surprised by Ljubljana. We ended up, instead of spending 1 or 2 days there, we spent over a week.
Okay. Let me go ahead and do a screen share with you all, and we'll start talking today about where can we travel and when. And I actually started doing this class. Well, I I started preparing for the class. Dreamt up the class a long time ago, prepared for the class about a month ago. First did it in middle to late May. And things have changed considerably since I first started this class. So in many ways, it's this class is mostly about researching and understanding where you can go, because I can't give you definitive information that might not last just a day, because things are happening and changing quickly. And because this is a small group today, looks like we've got our TA Lester, by the way. Great to have Lester with us. Looks like we're about 8 besides Lester and me. Go ahead and just interject questions when I ask for them today. No need to put your questions in the chat. You are free to also put your questions in the chat anytime. Most of you know me. I'm Russ Eanes from Harrisonburg, Virginia, an avid traveler. I'm also a writer, a walker, and a cyclist, and I used to be a book publisher. I'm now a full-time guide with Get Set Up, and I teach a lot of travel classes. Not all of them, but I teach a lot of travel classes, especially the series on making travel easy is what I specialize in. As you all know, Get Set Up helps you learn all sorts of useful skills from people like you so you can do wonderful things. Did you know that all the guides in Get Set Up are over 55? So you're learning from your peers when you're at Get Set Up. It's a great place to learn everything from how to use your iPhone to the proper wine to choose for supper, or what are Italian wines really all about. You can request a recording of this class after the class. You can email help@getsetup.io. And if you're joining by live stream, and we do have people joining by live stream today, the best ways is to participate is to join us and register for a class, because then you get to ask questions in live, real time, live. Last, Get Set Up's not paid to promote any specific product. So if I promote anything today, I'm not being paid to do that. Our agenda today is pretty simple. We're going to talk about what we know about travel right now, what we can anticipate, and we're going to talk a little bit about the uncertainties, and then we'll have a nice discussion. And some of you that know things I don't can share that, because this situation is so fluid and so changing that as much as I research it, I find that people are telling me stuff I didn't know, including some articles I pulled up just from yesterday about some agreements that have happened in Europe. Here's first of all what we know. We know that people want to travel. A lot of folks have felt very cooped up last year. Travel, tourism is a big part of the economy of many countries, but also a lot of us just love to travel. It's a good thing to travel. We expand our minds and our experiences. We learn and we understand our common human family a lot better when we travel. And the places that rely heavily on tourism are eager to open. So I'll show you a chart on that in a minute, and then you'll get an idea why so many of those places are eager to open. Rules will vary from country to country for the foreseeable future, and we'll look at that a bit. And because one of the things I'll tell you today is if you want to go somewhere, research it and keep researching it up until the time you make a reservation, and then continue to research it up until the time you leave, because the rules can change. In fact, I was just looking at some of the requirements for Alitalia, and they surprised me. Some requirements, such as a health pass, are yet undefined, though they are actually, just this week, they have defined them. That's a bit of an old note. But for Americans, they're undefined. I know that New York State has a health passport that has information about your vaccination. And I tell people, if you aren't vaccinated, not only is it not wise to travel, but you probably can't travel outside the US if you're not vaccinated. The entry requirements to various countries around the world can include things like a negative COVID test or certificate of recovery. And this negative COVID test, we'll talk a bit about that, because those vary a little bit from country to country. Typically, it's like you have to have a negative COVID test within 2 or 3 days of returning or of flying in somewhere, and you have to show proof of that. Also, your entry requirement can include a proof of vaccination. Make sure you have your vaccination card. Also, remember that coming back to the U.S. is also restricted, and not restricted, but restrict. I didn't spell that right, did it? It's also restricted. And make sure you know those requirements not only before you leave, but while you're gone and preparing to come back to the U.S. Keep an eye on those. My daughter went to Mexico recently, and she almost forgot that she had to have her COVID test 3 days before she came back. And so fortunately, she went and got it and got back into the U.S. But if she'd shown up at the border or in the airport, she flew home, they would have said, "Where's your COVID test?" And she wouldn't have had it. Here are some of the uncertainties about travel in the future. First one is that airlines have not yet offered all the flights they had in the past, but are starting to offer more of them. So when I first looked this up about a month ago, more than half of the flights that I had been using to go overseas in recent years, like to places like Edinburgh and to Italy and to Germany, were no longer any, they weren't, and to Ireland, weren't there. Those airlines were not currently offering those flights. Since then, a lot of those flights have opened back up, and the airlines probably will continue to offer more as demand goes. But because the situation is so fluid right now and so rapidly changing, I can see that the airlines are taking it easy. Remember also that, well, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but remember, things can change for the worse. So there could be a new variant of the virus that comes out, and they might discover that one of the vaccines for it isn't as effective. And so a country could change its rules overnight. Another uncertainty is, what might a digital health passport look like? I actually looked that up to see if I could get one on my phone, and I came across several. I decided not to download any of them, put them on my phone apps, because I want to wait and see if there's something coming out of the meeting of the G7 nations. You know, our president is in Europe right now, and as the U.S. Administration has been over there, decisions are coming out pretty rapidly about travel between the U.S. and these countries. Did you know that United Airlines is offering a prize? You can get a drawing for a prize if you upload your vaccine card, an image of it. And one of the prizes they offer you is a free year of free flights. And someone said the other day, the first time I showed this in a class, they said, "Well, you know, do you really want to put that information up to United?" And I said, "Well, United already has everything they need to know about me, including my passport. So I'm really not worried about them having my vaccine information." Here's something that just gives you an idea. I found this. This is a chart from 2019. This is the countries with the largest numbers of international tourist arrivals. Okay, 2019. Number one was France. Number two was Spain. And number three was the United States. So it is no wonder then that France wants to welcome travelers back. And I've got a headline from yesterday saying that they are now planning to open to travelers from the US. Spain has already made that announcement that they're opening up to travelers from the US. In fact, I know someone going there later this month for about 6 weeks. They're eager because their economies depend a lot on tourism. I don't know that I have the exact figure from Spain, but it could be like 15% of their economy is tourism. And they really want those tourists to come back. Any place in the world that the economy was heavily dependent on tourism got hit really hard last year, and individual businesses that are in tourism got hit hard last year. I know people that work in, say, the guidebook industry, or they are guides leading tours, and they had nothing to do last year. It was really hard on them. Note that number three is the United States. So we are actually eager to have people come here, but we've been hit really hard by the coronavirus. And so there is a lot of caution. I found it interesting that the number 4 country in the world is China, and number 5 is Italy. Italy is actually a place I'm planning on going to. So I'm researching the requirements to get into Italy. Notice that number 6 is Turkey and number 7 is Mexico. And Mexico, by the way, is one of those countries which has no travel restrictions unless it's changed in the last couple of days. And I've been counseling Americans who've been saying, "I just want to go somewhere." I said, "Well, if you consider going to Mexico, there's lots of places, wonderful places to go." We did some travel classes on Mexico over the last 6 weeks, and it's not that expensive to get there, and it's pretty cheap when you're there, and they have no restrictions. So we've seen some uncertainties. Here's some things to research, and we'll talk today about how we research where we want to go. Number one, what countries can you fly to right now in Europe? And I'll show you that. This changes almost daily. You will also want to research a vaccine passport. I would say For one thing, you're going to be required to have a vaccine to travel to a lot of these countries, say in Europe. And keep an eye out for how to get on a vaccine passport. I know these countries are starting to have just opened up their own version of that. And whether or not the US is going to be included, that is an open question, but I believe the US wants to be. There are such things as COVID tested flights. Delta has introduced those. United is working on them, as well as maybe Air American. I'm not sure about American, but Delta is doing them for sure. And what they do, that means that to get on the flight, you have to have a negative COVID test. So Delta is certifying that everybody on the flight has had a negative test within 2 or 3 days. And then they're also offering some testing on flights or on arrival. The idea is to make it really a safe bet for these travelers to arrive in these countries. They're also checking for your vaccination. Again, study where you want to travel to, and I'll show you some of the tools today to figure that out. And lastly, remember those restrictions coming home that could change in the US. There are going to be those restrictions. I'm at least now thinking of a trip to Italy in September, and it could just be that things will change enough between now and September that maybe the US won't require a COVID-19 test for vaccinated travelers. I don't know, but I'm planning on it. So I'm going to include in my travel plans how to get tested before I go and after I get back. I'm going to also make sure I know in my plans what the requirements are when I'm there. Some countries are requiring you to fill out a form when you enter. In fact, I know Spain is doing that. I believe France is doing that. That way that if a person did arrive and they discovered they were positive, they would know where they are and how to contact them. A lot of these restrictions are in lieu of requiring a quarantine on arrival. Over the last year of the pandemic, a lot of countries have required travelers coming in to quarantine. And in fact, a lot of travelers couldn't come in unless it was certain types of travel, like business travel or necessary travel. So tourism was kind of shut down. Any questions so far? Anybody have any experience with any of this they want to tell about? We'll have more chance for discussion. Okay, I'm going to show you some links about how the travel requirements, CDC travel bans, destination countries. But before I do that, I'm going to show you some really up-to-date information that I came across, and I will make sure that you get these links in your notes. As I've been researching when you can fly where, I came across this article in the Washington Post. There is a good section in the Washington Post on travel. So this is someone asking, can we go to Europe on our honeymoon this summer? So this is from January 28th. And this is a good site. This is, by the way, this is just a column I'm showing you to. But if you want to know where you can go, here's an article that just came out yesterday. Again, it's that by the way column. This is from June 9th, yesterday afternoon.
Pretty picture of Barcelona.
Isn't that a pretty picture of Barcelona? 11 European countries Americans can travel to right now. So I recommend that any of you interested in travel to Europe, read this article. I'll send you the link to it. It's in the Washington Post. But for example, if you scroll down here, you'll come to France and it says, for example, vaccinated Americans can visit France as of June 9th. That was yesterday. So you can actually fly there today. It says you need to show more than just proof of vaccinations. You have to show a negative result from a test taken within 2 or 3 days before departure from the country. I don't like that 2 or 3 days. Can I have 2 days or 3 days? I'd hate to have it be 2 days and discover my test is 3 days old. So I think I'd go for 2 days before. Unvaccinated travelers are not allowed in the country unless they show a qualifying, compelling reason. I'm not going to tell you what that is. Okay. So, but this is the other thing to look at, to really study closely. When you're traveling, it says there's a curfew from 11 p.m. until 6 a.m. according to the French government. Cinemas, theaters, museums, shops, and festivals are subject to capacity restrictions. So one thing I've been telling people for months is, if you want to travel abroad, this may not be the best year because some of the things you want to see or do may not be available to you, or there might be restrictions. So you might want to take that into consideration as you make your plans. Another country that is really interested in having Americans is Greece. And they've been allowing Americans there actually for almost 2 months, since April. And this is in spite of the fact that some areas in Greece aren't doing so well with COVID-19. Okay. It says here, they warn that the country's still under lockdown and movement is restricted. Okay. You have to have a mask, social distancing. So even though you can go there, I'm not sure you would want to go to Greece. So here's a place I want to go, Italy. It says, as of May 16th, tourists in the United States can visit Italy without quarantine if they arrive on a COVID-tested international flight. And I'll show you a little bit about that. The Delta has it. Apparently, okay, I wasn't sure about American. They are offering it, and United. I haven't seen it on United, or I haven't even looked at American, just been looking at Delta on their flights to Rome and Milan. They weren't open for leisure travelers early. And it says U.S. Embassy in Italy says a curfew remains in place from 11 p.m. until 5 a.m. That's okay with me. I don't think I'm going to be out that late when I'm in Italy. Can't quite do that like I might have done it when I was younger. So that doesn't bother me. So anyway, this is a really good article if you're thinking of going to Spain. Remember, I can show you this article today, and a week from now, a month from now, 2 months from now, this could all be irrelevant. We don't know. Spain, it has some more, requirements. So research it if you're thinking of going to any of these places. Iceland has been open, by the way, and I know a lot of people that are making plans to go to Iceland. Iceland would be a fun place to go in the summer. They're going to have very long days. Getting close to the land of the midnight sun. U.S. visitors can visit Iceland if they're fully vaccinated against the coronavirus or can provide proof of prior infection. Okay, even if you're vaccinated or covered, they still have to undergo one coronavirus test when they arrive and wait for results, which are typically available between 6 and 24 hours at the place they're staying. So if you're planning on landing and going somewhere right away, I don't think that'll work. So this is a really good article. This is an article which I also came across yesterday. The EU lawmakers, I'll send you this link, by the way, they're okaying a virus pass. So this is this whole thing about this passport. And this has been in work with the EU countries to develop a common passport so people can travel back and forth within the countries. Actually, right now, the EU, the law says you can't restrict travel between countries, but they can be restricting what you do when you get in that country based on your health. And so several of these EU countries, like Bulgaria, Croatia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Germany, Greece, and Poland, already had this travel passport system, and now they're looking at how to roll it out to the rest of the EU. And as I understand, the US would somehow like to get on board with this. And I think they would be interested in having us on board with that because so many of the tourists come from the US. So this is a good resource. And here's another article. This one's a little bit older. This is from May 21 about 9 questions about traveling to Europe. And, something from probably 3 weeks ago does feel kind of dated, but there are some updates in this article right here, which is really worth reading if you want to go to Europe. I'll show you briefly this thing about COVID restricted flights. And this is in a Delta. And if you go to the Delta homepage, there's right off up front, they tell you Italy's open for travel, so you can explore it. It says travel to Italy without the need to quarantine when you arrive on our COVID tested flights. And if you find this, if you'd like, I can send you this link. They do quite a bit of explanation down here about what these COVID tested flights are. So that will tell you how that's going to work. Again, that is right now. If you're thinking of going 3 or 4 months in the future, that might be different. I do tell people, again, remember, if something is open today, it could be better in 3 months. In other words, if there's some light restrictions, it could be even better in 3 months. it might be worse. So if you're planning travel, there are risks. That's why the major airlines still have free, the majors, which are Delta, United, and American, are offering free flight changes. Any questions about any of this so far? Okay. One thing I'm doing, and this is something I would encourage you to do, is look up information for the country that you're going to. So I looked up Italy, and this is just a website called Intentional Travelers. And this is from June. It just says June. So I know, this was done originally in July 2020. It was updated on June 5th. So this tells you some stuff about Italy and how it impacted. Italy does have this lights, green light, amber light, red light system, which for each of the provinces, which tells you whether you can travel between provinces, who can travel. And so that's another thing to look at. This article, by the way, this has surprised me. It says Alitalia reports that storing carry-on and its overhead has been stopped. So you're going to have to check a bag if you check your bag if you're going to go Alitalia, because they don't want people to congregate when they're boarding and deplaning. But this might change, for all you know, in the next few months. So I would really encourage anyone to spend time researching the country you want to go to. This is what I was mentioning about the zone classification. If you click on that link, it shows you right now all of Italy is in the sort of amber or yellow zone, which means there are minor restrictions. This is in Italian. I click on it, I can get it in English. There you go. This was from a law that apparently after the 18th of May. So the yellow zone, the white area is okay. So if you click on the area, it's possible to visit the FAQ. So if you click on a region right there, the yellow area, it tells you all the things that are restricted or how it works under yellow. So really handy to spend your time researching this if you're going to go to a country. Another thing to check is the New York Times has a free coronavirus page. So if you don't have a subscription to the Times, you can still find anything in their coronavirus information. And this shows you around the world vaccination, but you can also go to a world map and you can look at latest maps and data. So I go here, this shows you how the global impact outbreak is, what's happening around the world. And you can see now the countries that are worse off and better off. So I guess this sort of light yellow are the countries that aren't so bad. And you can see their average cases per day in Australia is 13 per 100,000. It's got the percentage is like equivalent of 0, I guess. The United States, it's 4.5 per 100,000. And one rule of thumb I've seen, at least, is that countries will not permit people coming from another country where the rate of infection is higher than it is in their country. So if you scroll down here, Brazil, you know, has been one of the worst. They have 27 per 100,000. We were up there. Argentina's got 59, so not a good idea to go to Argentina right now, I'd say, or at least plan for it. Mongolia is not looking too good. India, in spite of the fact that we've heard that they're really suffering on the coronavirus, their rate is 7.7, but it's a very, very densely and heavily populated country. So that means a lot of illness and deaths. In fact, I think I heard, unfortunately, this morning, they recorded the highest single day death toll in India yesterday of any country in the world. So this is just something to keep an eye on. Canada and the U.S. have a very similar infection rate, and I know they are under conversation about finally opening our border. I know a lot of people would like to see the U.S.-Canadian border open, especially in the summer. A lot of places, great places to go in Canada in the summer. A couple other sites you can go to, and you'll get these links in your notes. There is this thing called travel requirements from the Raleigh-Durham Airport. Why Raleigh-Durham Airport? I have no idea, but they are known to have one of the best databases and maps. They scrape their data from somewhere else, so they're not going out and finding it themselves. But you can look now at the world map, and you can even zoom in on it a bit if you like, and you can see this. Lighter blue means down here open to restrictions, and darker blue means they're totally open to visitors without restrictions. So look at that. Mexico is very open. By the way, another country that's very open is Costa Rica. It's hard to tell, but it's bright blue. And then if you click on the country, it will tell you more information. For example, Costa Rica, quarantine's not required. COVID-19 test, not required. Forms or applications, that's required. Health insurance is required. So I would click on that and find out more about that down here where it says more info. But this is great because you can search the world map and find out the information, and you can get more information about what that means. So for example, the forms or applications, they complete the digital form called Health Pass, and they ask you these questions right here that you have to fill out. Health insurance, more explanations. All vaccinated and non-vaccinated passengers are required to have travel health insurance. Okay, so you better research that if you want to go to Costa Rica. By the way, wonderful country to go to. I've never been there, but I'd like to go there someday. So you can really click on any country in the world and find out this information. Keep in mind, hopefully it's up to date. Things can change from one day to the next. They may not have the database or the website updated, but this is a pretty good resource for finding about places in the world. Clicking on France, quarantine may be required. COVID-19 test is required. The forms or application is required. Health insurance not required. So that's just something you can find out about that country. Any questions about any of this so far? Again, I'll send you the links to these in your notes so you have an idea. There are a couple other sites. You can go to the CDC site, which does explain certain things that you might find useful. I don't find that very useful just because they're very conservative and they don't necessarily change it real fast. There is another site called Travel Bans that tells you a lot of the information that you'll also see on travel requirements at Raleigh, Durham. And if you're thinking of going to a certain country, those destination countries have their own information. So you can, when you're looking for something, say about Ireland or Italy, look for the official government information about that country. Don't just look for a website that will tell you something about it. Look for the official government information about what might be required. Well, let me stop our share here and ask if there are any questions about anything we've gone over so far, anything you know or have questions about from what I presented today. Oh, Susan, should we look at Austria for you?
Yeah, if you sure. Yeah, and we'll see if it changed since yesterday. I've been watching. They're pretty much in line with the rest of the EU countries. Pretty much the same.
Okay.
They were on a lockdown, I think, until May 19th. So then they got off the lockdown, and now they're trying to go back to normal. And
I forgot we wanted to look at Austria for Susan. So let's go back to this one right here.
Yeah, Austria there, in the middle. Yeah, there you go.
Real tiny one. Oh, that's
No, that's
Slovenia. I clicked on the wrong one. This is Austria, right?
No, right there. Yeah.
Here, right there.
No,
that's Austria. There. Quarantine may be required. COVID-19 tests may be required. Forms of application may be required. Health insurance not required. And you can click on more information. And this is last updated June 8th. By the way, it's very important to check this. So this is 2 days old, which is not that old, but in the world of coronavirus, that can be pretty old. This just tells you international travel to Austria is permitted for, and let's scroll down here. I don't see.
Yeah, apparently they're open to a lot of the EU countries, but they're not looking at the Schengen countries, all of them quite yet. So I'm hopeful that President Biden's trip to Europe will sort of clarify that.
Yeah, I don't see the U.S. on here yet, so that's a
No,
good one to
no.
keep an eye on. And I think that what we're seeing in Europe is kind of a, I think of it as kind of a domino effect. As a few countries open up and they figure out how to do that, some other countries may open up. And remember also, it isn't just is this country want to be open or not? It's factors like how much tourism have they been dependent on? Last year, Spain, because it is so heavily dependent on tourism, opened up, and a lot of people thought that they opened up too soon, and they again had to go into lockdown. It was pretty hard. And that's part of what happens in these countries. If they went through an experience of opening up too soon, they may quickly want to close down again. So it's how much tourism they have, and again, how their experience has been. And also how well organized they think they are when it comes to keeping an eye on this stuff. Some countries might be better than others. Some are just really eager to have Americans. Greece has been very eager, in spite of the fact that it doesn't have a particularly good track record right now. Bulgaria is eager. In fact, we've got a class on Bulgaria Monday night. We've got a learner coming to talk to us about Bulgaria. They're really eager to have Americans. So some of these countries that maybe are lesser known, this might be your chance to go there. And Arlene, have you been to Bulgaria yet?
Yeah. What about Slovenia?
Slovenia. Let's look at
Are they
Slovenia.
open?
That was Slovenia right there. Quarantine may be required. COVID-19 test required. Forms or applications recommended. I like that. And health insurance not required. So let's see. It's permitted with some restrictions related to quarantine. So testing locations in the United States of America. Now, this is interesting right here. Testing centers outside the airport. Okay, so there is a list where you can get them. Nothing about the U.S., which I think means that you probably can go there from the U.S. Because it doesn't say you can't. So looks like Slovenia. Is that on your list still, Arlene? You haven't gotten to Slovenia yet?
That's where Ljubljana is. That's the capital of Slovenia. And they are like the friendliest people on par with New Zealand.
Okay. Well, I've been wanting to go to Slovenia, so I'll remember that. Let's see. I'm going to go back to our chat and remember what people said about where they might want to travel. Let's look at Iceland. Someone mentioned Iceland. So, and let me just see a few others here that people had mentioned. Okay. Let's scroll on to Iceland. It said, look at this. Most passengers from the United States are not allowed to enter Iceland. Now, remember, that's today. They have been announcing they want Americans to come. So that could be a little bit off in the future. Quarantine may be required. Is required a test. Forms or applications are required. Look at more information. And this is from May 31st. Boy, in the world of COVID-19, that is really old information, 10 days old. This thing that says are not allowed to enter, okay, so it's a double negative, does not apply to, so nationals and residents of Iceland can get back in. Andorra, Monaco, San Marino, Switzerland, Vatican City, and EEA member states, and then here's a whole list of them. Britain, here again, more lists down here in detail, apparently can get in, but it doesn't say anything about the United States. So looks like as of today, they're saying you can't get in there, but I know they want to have Americans coming this summer. Let's see. Any other countries we want to look at before I stop this? Well, let's look at Portugal. Quarantine may be required. COVID-19 tests may be required. Forms or applications are required. And it says, so you're still not allowed to enter Portugal. I think that's while that's true as of June 9th, I think that's going to be true. That not going to be true. They are going to allow Americans in soon. Well, any more questions or comments about where can we travel and when? And we'll do this class again in a few weeks and we'll see what's changed. Actually, 2 weeks from now, which is when I think I'm going to do the class again. It's going to be quite different, I know for sure, because I know people leaving in the next 10 days to 2 weeks to go. Actually, I'm going to do it next Thursday, the 17th. So we'll see what the situation is Thursday. I have a hunch that Thursday is going to be a day when we're going to see a lot of travel will be available the week following that. Well, any more comments, questions, suggestions? We don't, you'll all get notes with the links to these articles and places following up the class, and you can look that up. Yes, Arlene.
I guess the question I have is the fact that the country is open and we could go there under whatever restrictions they have. Is it wise?
That is a very good question. Is it wise? It's probably wise not to travel right now. I didn't travel at all last year because I didn't want to be part of the potential problem. I'm not saying people who traveled were a problem. I just didn't want to be part of any problem. And I thought I'd take a year off. I am contemplating and planning a trip to Italy for this September, which I may not make yet. Haven't gotten any reservations. I'm doing it partly as a research for my job to see what it's like to travel. I traveled on a plane to Maine over the weekend. I flew. I felt very safe the whole time. The flight up was full. I flew from Washington Dulles to Portland. It was a full flight. I flew back on a flight that was 3/4 empty. I have been reading and understanding that the air on a plane is one of the best air environments in terms of circulating the air and keeping it filtered. So I felt very safe there. I don't find wearing a mask comfortable. And so I had to wear it for almost 6 hours between the time that I entered the Washington, D.C. airport and the time I got to Maine, because I had to catch a bus and technically wear a mask for an hour on the bus. I felt it was wise to travel there. There were no problems. Would it be wise to travel to another country? Well, here's one thing about traveling to another country is that you're making a bigger financial investment. And also things, they are much less than what might feel like your control. In the US, we kind of know what's happening with our country. And other countries, we may not be so sure, even if we're researching it. So some of the places we might want to go, like my trip to Italy, on the one hand, the Italians are very, very worried about COVID-19 infections because they got hit so hard right in the beginning. On the other hand, that's made them very vigilant and very careful and very studious in their policy. So I kind of trust it, even though I know they really want tourists. Is it wise? Probably if you don't really need to travel, wait till next year.
And what about, excuse me, even here in the US, traveling by train, number one, and most of my traveling was done by ship. And I don't know whether ships are still, as it seems scary because that's where this stuff seemed to have started. What are your thoughts about ship travel, cruise ship travel and train travel in the US?
I think train travel in the US is safe. And in fact, right now, Amtrak is offering a $299 pass, a 30-day pass anywhere in the US. And that's really a good deal. I think train travel is safe. Personally, love train travel. It's my favorite way to travel. And, you can't travel to Europe by train. Otherwise I would. It's my favorite way to travel. And I think it's safe. If you're vaccinated, I think it's safe to travel. I wouldn't travel if you're not vaccinated at all. And I know someone who can't be vaccinated, and she's very worried about a lot of things because she can't go in a lot of places and do a lot of things because she can't be vaccinated. So I think it's pretty safe to travel in the US. Definitely safe to travel by car. The US also is approaching a critical number of vaccinated adults. It's between 60 and 70%. and 70% is getting close to what they call herd immunity, and a lot of younger people are getting vaccinated as well. So I feel like travel within the U.S. is pretty safe.
And cruise ships?
Yeah, I'm going to plead the fifth on that. I don't take cruise ship travel anyway. And I know that the cruise ship industry really wants people to come back and is promising that they're doing everything to make it safe. So I think you can just have to research that one. I just read a report, and I can't remember now what country it was. They had an infection on board a cruise ship in spite of the fact that they had been diligent on having all the crew vaccinated and people showing having to prove they're vaccinated when they got on board, and I think testing. So I'm not sure. I haven't dug deep enough in to find out what happened there. Maybe they don't know. My concern about cruise ships comes back to when the coronavirus broke out, is that if you're on a ship, you're stuck. And I wouldn't want to be stuck on a ship somewhere. Thanks for asking those questions, though. You've been a great group. Thanks for participating today. And if you want, come back next week and see what else we know a week from now. I try to keep up on this as much as I can. And I love to travel. And I hope I'm looking forward to a future when we all feel safe and secure when we travel. Actually, tomorrow I'm doing a class on traveling safely. And of course, one of the things we talk about is how you keep yourself healthy while you're traveling.
Thank you so much. This was very fun.
Great. Well, thanks for coming, everyone. And you have a good afternoon. I'll be back at 4:00 with a class on how to use Airbnb if anyone is interested. So see you then. Bye.
Okay. Bye.